This weekend, Formula One will head to Singapore and the Marina Bay Circuit for the 18th race of the 2025 F1 season. With just 7 races left this year, it's looking like the battle for the driver's title is going to be between the two McLaren drivers of Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. However, following back-to-back wins for Max Verstappen, there is still a chance the reigning world champion has a part to play this season. The Marina Bay Circuit has always been a bogey track for Red Bull, and of all the tracks on this year's calendar, it is the only one that Verstappen hasn't won at. But there is a rule change for this Grand Prix that could make all the difference for Verstappen. Today, I'll check out the surprising rule change for this weekend's race and whether it could help Verstappen get a first ever win at Marina Bay. So don't go anywhere. The Singapore Grand Prix has always had one big problem. And no, I'm not talking about the horribly bumpy track surface, the incredibly high temperatures and humidity, or the never-ending concrete walls that play the background for every street race. I'm actually talking about the Marina Bay Circuit's tiny pit lane, and the fact that it's always meant that the FIA have to enforce a 60 km/h speed limit. That, in theory, makes perfect sense. With everything being so tight and compact in there, from a safety standpoint, the slower speed limit allows mechanics longer to get out of the way. It gives the drivers more time to react and reduces the risk of anyone getting injured, which is obviously what we all want. However, the 60 km/h speed limit also means that the Singapore Grand Prix was one of the most punishing in terms of time lost in the pits. Drivers normally lose around 25 seconds coming in to change tyres, and that made it one of the most penalising circuits to make a pit stop on the F1 calendar. With that in mind, the obvious choice for the team's strategists was to try and force a one-stop race by going long on a hard or medium tyre. As F1 fans, if there's one thing we hate, it is a one-stop race. When everyone starts worrying about tyre life more than lap time, the racing becomes boring. Drivers don't want to push for overtakes because of the impact it has on their tyres, and the races become processional. For this season though, the FIA are making a change. For this year's race, the pit lane speed limit has been increased to 80 km/h, reducing the time needed for a pit stop by almost a third. As drivers will lose less time making pit stops this year, teams may be willing to consider pitting more than once. To try and push the chance of a two-stop race, Pirelli has brought the C3, C4 and C5 tyres to serve as the hard, medium and softs. This is the second softest set of tyres that Pirelli could have brought. The new C6, which featured in Baku, won't be making the trip to Singapore though. The combination of soft tyres and a quicker pit lane will hopefully push the teams away from the one-stop, or at least encourage some of the teams to consider a two-stop. When F1 has teams driving different strategies, the racing tends to be fantastic, as cars who are pushing on a two-stop encounter those trying to save tyres on a one-stop, creating plenty of overtaking opportunities. If the two-stop strategy is an option for this weekend, then one team that could look to exploit it is Red Bull. The big disadvantage that Red Bull have had against McLaren this season is that they can't push on through medium-speed corners in the same way that McLaren can. The McLaren car does an incredible job of preserving its tyre life while pushing through corners. If Verstappen ends up in a one-stop battle against McLaren's, he will be at a disadvantage. However, he is one of the best overtakers in the sport at the moment, so if Red Bull give him a two-stop strategy, even if he does have to make more overtakes, that shouldn't be a problem. If the simulations of the two strategies come out with relatively similar race times, then Red Bull going for a two-stop could give Verstappen the advantage he needs to continue his title charge. With 69 points to find in 7 races against Piastri, dropping points to the Australian driver would be the end of Max's very slim hopes. The pit lane speed limit isn't the only change being made to the circuit though. The FIA have also confirmed improvements have been made to the pit lane surface for this year's race. The area between the working lane and fast lane has been repaired, and the race organisers have also resurfaced several areas of the track. They've laid new asphalt between turns 2 and 3, 6 and 7, through turn 9, and from turns 14 to 16 and 16 to 19. Minor patches have also been laid at turns 5, 6, 13 and 14. What does that mean for the race? Well, new asphalt will need rubbering in, which means the lap times should ramp up pretty quickly over the weekend as the new track surface gains grip. If the new track surface is more abrasive, then it could push teams towards a two-stop as well. It'll be exciting to see what happens over the weekend, and hopefully the changes will result in an excellent Grand Prix. Looking further ahead into F1's future, there are a lot of other changes being considered. One of them could see Formula One move to a 2-day race weekend, which would be a seismic change from the current 3-day weekend. Before I talk about that though, if you're enjoying the video and want to catch more news and analysis on everything F1, then make sure to press the like button and subscribe to F1 Reverse. Thanks a lot. Formula One now includes 24 races per season, and the debate about the burden on teams, staff and fans continues to flare up. With teams away for almost half the year, some teams have started to rotate staff that are away at races to try and help reduce the burnout. That is possible for some staff, but not all of them. However, Williams team boss James Vowles has proposed a different solution which could completely change Formula One. He has suggested that F1 scrap Friday free practice and make each weekend a 2-day event. We could then even do more races without extra burden, the Brit suggests. During the Grand Prix weekend in Baku, Vowles spoke out about the growing number of races and the structure of the current F1 weekend. There was something interesting that Formula One recently brought out, the Williams team boss said. The question was whether we should make races shorter or introduce more sprint races. I would say no. For Vowles, the solution is not in shortening races or adding more sprints, but in making the weekend more compact. I would opt for 2-day weekends, just Saturday and Sunday, he suggests. And here's why: we can do more in that time. Although Vowles emphasizes that 24 races are about the maximum, he sees room for more events, provided Friday is scrapped. I know I just said that 24 is the maximum, but if you drop Friday, that's 1 day per weekend that falls away, he explains. Do that 24 times, then you get 24 days per year. Then you could add 2 more race weekends. In other words, a season with 26 races is feasible according to Vowles, as long as the current weekend format is adjusted. Not only does the schedule become more efficient, but according to the Williams team boss, the sport itself also becomes more exciting. Less practice time means more surprises, says Vowles. I think the product will improve, as we currently do a lot of free practice. As an engineer, that's great. Deep down, I love experimenting, Vowles explains. But if you force us and say, you have 1 hour before the qualification begins, then that's a whole different story. I think this will lead to more variation and unpredictability. It is an interesting proposition from the Williams boss. The idea of more unpredictability with teams having less time to prepare is exciting. It is certainly something we've seen happen on sprint weekends, where sprint qualifying can throw up some real surprises, with the teams only having 1 hour of free practice. As a viewing experience, that would probably make things more exciting for the fans. From a broadcaster's perspective, and as a viewing product, losing Friday doesn't have that much of an impact. Viewership on Fridays is significantly less, with no competitive sessions, unless it is a sprint weekend, and most viewers are at work while those sessions are on anyway. There are also problems though. Even though the teams would gain a day each race weekend, they would still be away for 2 more weekends a year. Also, for race-going fans, the ticket prices wouldn't decrease to match the reduction in track time. They would just get to watch 2 less sessions of F1 racing. Of course, the lost F1 sessions on a Friday could be replaced with other racing, but if you buy a ticket for an F1 weekend, you're going to see the F1 racing, and with less of that, some fans would feel hard done by. But what do you think of Vowles' idea? And do you think the change in pit lane speed will have a big impact on this weekend's race? Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.